Okay, so in the last tutorial, I showed you how I designed the camera iris to be animated in Illustrator. Today, I'm going to show you how to animate it and import it into another project to have it in the camera itself. So we're going to start with a new project. I'm just going to double click in my bin so I can import my Illustrator file. Now when I import it, I want to import it as a composition. Definitely has to be a composition. Retain layer size, alright? So we double click that, open it up, and the first thing I want to do is I have to move my anchor points into the, when you're looking at, I guess, the bottom right or the bottom left hand corner, right? And that way, when we select them all and rotate, they all rotate from the right spot. And that is how the iris works, right? And that's the working iris right there already. 3 seconds into the document. So now I'm going to import my camera file, which is what I'm going to put the iris into. And we're going to open that up. We're going to drag that composition into the new composition. And we're going to resize. Right, pop it in where it needs to pop. And then just gonna mess with the opacity a little bit, bring it down, make it blend a little bit more with the camera. Make it look like it's behind the glass of the lens. Now I'm just going to animate the button real quick. So to animate the button, all I have to do is change the size of the scale, right? But when I change the scale, I have to also move the anchor point to the bottom so that it doesn't move on the bottom, it only moves from the top. And then I want to unlink the scale and only change the height, right? So after 3 frames, I change the height down so it's almost completely compressed. Then 3 frames later, pop it back up to 100%. And we got a clicking button. Pretty simple. These little squares I'm clicking right now are basically to keep the vector image a vector image instead of pixelating it. So turning on the little sun, I call it, the little sun guy, it keeps the image a vector image in After Effects. As for the iris, I'll select them all, keyframe at the beginning, right? So I started to open a little bit, moved 5 frames, and I opened it as much as I could without it like getting smaller again, because it does get weird after you overextend a little bit. And then I went 5 frames, copied and pasted that first frame in there, because this is a looping animation, so everything has to start exactly where it ended. Right, boom. A little too quick. Gonna bring it over 5 more frames, bring that to 10. Bring that to 20, I mean. And then we'll bring that to 10. That should be good. This is up to you. You can make it faster, you can make it slower. It's all about timing, but I chose about 10 frames, 20 frames. Right. So now when I click that little star, the little sun makes all your Illustrator files can stay vector, so you can scale them in After Effects, right? So if you have a tiny little Illustrator file and you bring it to After Effects and you scale it, it's going to look like crap unless you turn that sun on. But that little sun guide does change the properties in After Effects as to what happens to it, right? So now when I change the opacity on this composition, it's going to make everything see-through, even though it shouldn't be. It should just only make it like that. So I had to turn that little star guy off just on the composition. But in the composition, they're all turned on each blade, so that's what's important. There are some things that affect objects with that expressions, like the wiggle expression. If you use the wiggle expression with a element from Illustrator that has that sun turned on, it's like, I don't even know what goes on. It's like such a weird anomaly. You can't use it really. It's kind of unusable. Alright, so now I'm just making some rings around the iris to cover up the edges and to give the lens a little bit more depth, make it look like it's actually inside the lens. So basically I just made a shape and made the fill opacity 0%, and now I'm just working with the stroke and changing the size and the color of the stroke. This is like preference really. If you like the edges, you can keep them. I didn't like how the edges look, so I'm covering them up with some shapes here, giving the lens a little bit more depth as well, because now it looks like there's it looks like the iris is pushed further back because there's stuff in front of it, you know. Yeah, so like I said, you have to go into ellipse 1, and then you have to go into fill, and then you have to go to opacity 0. You can't just do it from the top bar, which is kind of annoying. Alright, I'm just going to change the color to white. It's a little too bright. Bring it down a little bit. That's better. Make that thinner. Bada bang. Looking like a camera lens. Pretty cool. I like that. So now, I just want to reorder these things, make sure that the camera's on top. And put them in the wrong order, but that's okay. Fix that real quick. Bada boom. Alright, so now to export, we do want to make the composition only like 20, however, like a couple seconds after the animation's over. So we bring down the bar, the working composition bar, down to like a second and 12 frames. Now I made a solid, just to make a solid, just to go behind it to make it a white background. And then we add to the render queue, and when we change it from QuickTime to Photoshop sequence, because that will give us an individual Photoshop file for each frame. And you just save it to a folder. It's going to save it in its own little folder, right? And then we have to go into Photoshop and open that up.